Welcome to the Media Pro Show, the show that gives you quick, simple tips to grow your business by serving as an expert in the media. Learn how to get all the TV, radio, magazine, newspaper, podcast, and online publications, interviews, and media appearances that you want, and learn how to be great in those media appearances. I'm Dr. David Geyer, orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine specialist, and media medical expert. One of the key components that I teach the clients I work with one-on-one on how to get media interviews is how to pitch people in the media, journalists, reporters, writers, show hosts, producers, how to pitch them to get interviews. You can't just sit back and expect people to reach out to you. They have to know about you. They have to know what topic or field you're an expert in. They have to know how you can help them. Now, sure, you could hire a publicist to do this for you, but there's some pros and cons to working with a publicist. If you want to go back and hear all the things that a publicist or a PR firm can or can't do for you, go back and listen to episodes 18 and 19 or watch episodes 18 and 19 of this show for much more on publicists. Most local experts, certainly the ones I work with, but most attorneys, doctors, chiropractors, dentists, real estate agents, financial planners, accountants, therapists, fitness trainers, people who want to grow their businesses. They want to get more customers or clients locally. They want to get more media locally, so they don't need a publicist. But they are, and you are probably going to have to pitch people in the media to get those interviews. I've talked before about creating a pitch file, a notebook or a file or an online service like Evernote or Dropbox to collect ideas for topics to pitch. I did that 2 episodes ago, so go back and watch that. We've talked about how to figure out who at a certain publication or show, who you would actually pitch. We've talked a little bit on the hows of pitching. Now you've come up with your topic, that what you want to talk about in the media, and you've figured out who you want to pitch. Now you actually have to send that email. And that's where knowing how to get their email address, knowing where to send it, becomes so important. So where do you get these email addresses? Well, for some people it can be really easy. Others, you might have to do a little bit of work. But with almost every single person in the media, you can figure out how to contact them. So I want to give you a few of those ideas right now. Let's start with the easiest, the most basic, and that is their work website, their company, their media outlet's website. On all media outlets, just about, they're going to have bios, especially TV and radio. They're going to have bios, maybe a list of hosts, maybe a list of producers, and you go to their bio very often, especially for writers, journalists, reporters, that email is going to be right there in the bio. Sometimes you click on their name, and especially for writers, you get a list of articles. If you click on the byline or click on their name in that article, it might take you to their email address. That's very, very common. Doesn't always work, and that's why it's first on the list. I would start there, but there's other ideas to try. Next, I would look for a personal website that they have. Not almost all, but a huge number of writers and reporters and journalists, especially freelance writers, have personal websites, as well as TV reporters and TV producers. They use these personal websites as a resume or portfolio with links to the articles they've written or, segments, the videos of the segments that they've produced. And very often on their personal website, they'll have a contact page because they want to get hired. So you can reach out to them either through a contact form or an email address on that personal website. But remember, this is a personal site. So when you send your pitch, say, hey, I realize this is your personal website. I apologize for contacting you there, but I couldn't find your email at Fast Company, fastcompany.com. So I'm reaching out to you here because I have this idea for an article I think that you'd be great for. Do you mind if I share it with you here? And then they'll probably respond and give you their work-related email. So that's something else you could think to look for. Let's talk about social media. Next, try Twitter. If there's anything that Twitter's good for, it's news and breaking news. Almost everybody in the media will have a Twitter page, and almost everybody keep up with it and they tweet on a fairly regular basis. Just go to their Twitter bio. Very often it'll have an email. They're looking for people that have ideas for things that they can do in an article or on a show segment on the TV or radio shows. So definitely check their Twitter bio. Now, one thing about an email address and a Twitter bio is that most people will try to find ways to avoid the spam bots from getting that email address and filling their email boxes with huge amounts of spam emails. So the email address may look something like this: J Smith and then a space and then an @AT instead of the @ symbol, then another space, and then Gmail, then a space, and then .dot instead of the dot, and then .com. Again, they're trying to prevent people other than humans from being able to figure out that email address. So just look for that if you can. Another place that might be good to try is LinkedIn. Now, for me, I've found LinkedIn is better to try to identify who at a particular station would be appropriate. You can tell in their bios, if you search a particular station in LinkedIn, who's maybe a health producer or health writer. So that's something to think about. But in the connections, sometimes it will list ways to connect with them. It may just be their LinkedIn page. It may be their work or personal website. It may be social media like Instagram, but occasionally you'll actually find their email address. Now, one thing about LinkedIn, yes, you have the ability to send them a direct message through InMail. But I wouldn't start there. I would really try not to do that. I know a lot of people in the media, I know I'm personally this way. I don't like to be pitched through LinkedIn. If you send me some connection request, but it's very obvious you're going to try to pitch or sell something, I don't connect with you. That's a given. I just don't do that. So I wouldn't do that with media members either. But if you find their email address either in LinkedIn or somewhere else and you do pitch them and you get an interview, then maybe connect with them at that point on LinkedIn, because having that connection is always good for meeting other people in the media. And last, and I'll tell you, this one's probably the most controversial. I think the people I've worked with across the media, if they knew that I was teaching this, if they find this podcast or this show and this episode in particular, they will not be particularly happy with me. But there's a good chance that what I'm about to show you is how I got to them. And that is that you can pretty well figure out or guess what their email address is based on other people at that publication or media outlet based on their website. So go to their website. Again, we talked about this. And if you can't find their email address, you're going to find an email address of somebody there. So let's just say, let's use Men's Health as an example. And you go through the site, you can't find Susan Bell, who you want to pitch because she's perfect for your topic based on the research you've done. But you do find Jason Smith, and he's, again, hypothetical, but jsmith@menshealth.com. And you're trying to pitch Susan Bell. You can be pretty darn sure that her email address, if his is jsmith@menshealth.com, hers is going to be sbell@menshealth.com. Companies use basically the same email structure across the board. There's exceptions when people come in later and maybe there's people with potentially the same email structure, but that doesn't happen all that often. So it's going to be one of a few things. It'll be first name, last name at domain, Men's Health in this case. So first name, last name. It may be first name dot last name. It may be the first initial of their first name and then the last name, like in my case, D. Geyer, or it may be the first name and the first initial of the last name, David G. at whatever. Very rarely it'll be just the last name at, say, menshealth.com, the domain.com, or it may be just the first name. That's probably the rarest unless it's a very small publication. But once you find one, you can be pretty sure that it's going to be the same across the board. Then send the email with that as the email address, and if it doesn't bounce back, you can be pretty sure that it got to that person. One of the things I do with the clients I work with one-on-one is we figure out what show or what publication would be great to help you grow your business. Then we look for a particular producer or host or writer or journalist at that show, at that publication, at that network, figure out who's right to pitch. Then we work on figuring out how you can find that person's email address so that you can pitch them, so that you can get the interview, be great in the interview, and get more customers, clients, and patients. Remember, I am not giving you specific business advice in this show, in this episode. I don't do it in my coaching. I don't do it on the website. This is meant for information and educational purposes. If you need specific medical, legal, financial, business help, talk to a specialist in that area. But if you want to learn how to get more interviews and how to be great in those interviews so that hopefully, you do get more customers, clients, and patients. Hopefully you become the go-to expert in your industry. I can help you become a media pro. Go to mediaproscoaching.com. Sign up for a free 30-minute strategy session where we'll talk about your business or your practice and what you're trying to achieve. Are you trying to get more customers or clients or patients? Try to figure out maybe where you could do that. Some simple strategies you can put into place right now to start getting more media interviews and to grow your practice or business. While you're there, get my free Media Pros interview checklist, 20 to 30 simple reminders, tips, things to do every time before every interview so that you're great in that interview and you get asked back over and over and over again. That's it for today's show. I'm thrilled that you're here. As I always say, today and every day, make each day your masterpiece.